Hi everyone. A really important topic for all beginners of Power BI, working with a date table. This is probably one of the first things that you have to work with when you start your journey with DAX. Simple data analysis expression calculations can be done without creating a date table, but it is strongly advised for you to create one before you start your journey. And let me explain why it is so important. If I hop over to the Microsoft website and I show you Power BI date table, and you open the very first link that comes, it clearly tells you that if you want to use data analysis expressions for time intelligence functions, that would be things like date add, end of month, same period last year, etc. You need to have a prerequisite in the model, which is a date table. And the requirements for the date table are, it must have a column of data type date. The date column must contain unique values. It must not contain any blanks. It must not have any missing dates, and it must span full years. Now, a full year could be July to June, April to March, or January to December. And it also says that the date table must be marked as a date table. Now, marking it as a date table is very simple. There is a specific button that has been created for it. And as it says, when you specify your own date table, Power BI will perform the following validations to make sure that you have done it correctly. So contains unique values, no null values, contiguous date values, and the data type is correct. So let us come back. We have a data set with us. And you can see that there are two columns that we have that has a date in it. We have the order date and the shipping date. Now, if I want to do a simple visualization, for example, creating a column chart with my order date and sales value, you will see that it works perfectly. And this is because the hidden date table is created and you don't have to do anything. The hierarchy comes on its own and you're able to create the visualization. The problem starts to happen when you are using your own custom formulas. For example, you want to calculate the year-over-year change. That is something I've covered in a separate video. How do you make a date table? For this, we go to the data view, and then we select new table. Now you can call this table whatever you want. So I want to call it my date table here. And I'll show you two different ways of doing this. The absolute easiest way is to simply write calendar auto. What that does is to go through every single column in your data, and it identifies the minimum date, which is the earliest date, and the maximum date, which is the latest date. And it simply creates, like this, a table for me. So from the 1st of January 2012 all the way up till the 31st of December 2016. So let me just call it my date table 1. And let me show you a slightly better way of making this. So we will again go to new table and we say my date table 2. And this time we want to control which column Power BI goes to identify the oldest and the newest date, the earliest and the latest date. For this, we will create calendar. Now, either you can put the start and the end date yourself, but in that case, it will not be dynamic. So what we want to do here is to look at the minimum order date, comma, and then I want to look at the maximum shipping date. In this case, the result will be the same. But what we're able to do is to control the two columns here. For example, in your slicers and in other visuals, if you were not interested in the ship date at all for the analysis, then I could have simply kept the order date both for the minimum and the maximum. And what this does is to show me 1st of December 2012 till 31st December 2015. So only for 4 years. But if you look at the first date table, you will see that it goes up till 31st December 2016, since calendar auto is including the shipping date column as well. Let us create one more date table now. So my date table 3. And this time I want to go to the formula that I've already given to you. This would be available on GitHub. You can simply copy it and paste it here. And the only part that you have to change here is this part that is underlined in red. So we want to select the name of our table. So orders compact and the sales amount. Oh, I'm sorry. We want to select the date, right? So orders compact, and then we have the order date. And right below this, we will keep the orders compact and the shipping date. First, let us make sure that it is working, and then I'll explain to you how it is working in the first place. So when I press enter, you will see that this time it's not just creating a date column for me. I'm also able to see the calendar year, the month name, and the month number. How does it work? So what we are doing here is to first create two variables. So one is for the minimum year, the other is for the maximum year. For the minimum year, we are finding the minimum order date, and we are not interested in the complete date. We just want to know the year that it belongs to. For example, if it is the 5th of May 2020, then the year would be 2020. Similarly, we are finding the max year as well. And then I'm returning the result, which will have 4 columns in it. So you can see here that we're using add columns since we want to add more columns. So this would be our first column. This is our second column, the third and the fourth column. How do we get the result for the first column? What we're doing here is to use calendar auto, like I had shown you earlier. But what calendar auto is going to do is to go to every single column in my table, which might not be a good thing. For example, imagine you have the date of birth written in a column, but you don't really need to use that in the calculations. So it makes no sense to have a slicer with 1955 and 1956 in it. So we want to restrict the minimum and the maximum year to only the 2 years that we have selected. And that is the control that we have here. So I'm choosing to select the minimum year from the order date and the maximum year from the shipping date. And what we're doing here is to filter calendar auto in a way that I only want those records from calendar auto where the year is greater than or equal to minimum year and the year is less than or equal to maximum year. That means that any year which is before the order date and any year that is after the last ship date will not be included. Then we are creating 3 additional columns. So this is the name of the column here, calendar year. And what is the expression that we are writing to create it? We are writing CY, which is the text and the year of the date. Then for the month name, we're using the format function. And then for the month number, we're using month of the column. But the job is not yet done. If I come back to my visualization, we cannot use any one of these new date tables that we have created. Let me show you. So if I remove the order date and I replace that with the date coming from date table 3, you will notice it doesn't work properly. And the reason is that there is no relationship between both the tables, the orders compact and the date table. For this, we go to the modeling button. And here you can see that we have the 3 date tables with us. We will only select the third one since that's the best one. And we will connect the order date and the date. So simply drag and drop like this. And this creates a one-to-many relationship. So the date table has each date coming only one time. And obviously the transactional data, the fact table, orders compact, will have the order date coming multiple times. Also notice very carefully that the icon for the order date has gone away, which is supposed to happen because you are using a relationship now. So we cannot, even if we want to, use the original order date because it won't work. It will only work with individual dates. It can't show the hierarchy. So the correct way to do this would be to use the my date table 3 date in the axis. Once again, let me remind you that the visualization hasn't really changed. But the reason we wanted to do this was because if we want to do time intelligence calculations, we need to mandatorily have a date table. So if I go to quick measure, just to give you an instance, and I select, let us say, the calculation for my year-over-year change, you can see that I'm selecting the date from the my date table 3, and I'm selecting the sales value from orders compact in the base value. We click on OK, and we put the measure sales YY percentage in the tooltips. And as you can see, for the first year, there is no YY change. For the second year, it's 18.5%, 27.2%, and 26.25%. And this would not have worked, and many other calculations would not work properly if you had not created a proper date table. There is also a very nice template available. So you can simply search for date table template in Power BI. And you can see that on SQL BI, I can simply download it from here. So Alberto Ferrari and Marco Russo at SQL BI have very nicely created a template for you. And this is a really long piece of DAX code, but it does something really special. So if you notice, this is what my DAX looks like. Like I said, it's really long. As you can see, it's about 1500 lines. But what it does is to give you not just one column, but so many different columns. So you can see here that I have a lot of different ways in which the dates have been presented, and that will help you with a lot of different types of calculations. For example, we have the date here, we have the date key, the fiscal year number, fiscal quarter as the number, and then with the text FQ. And if we go to the right, you will see that we have a lot of other things. We have the week, then we have the relative position, we have the start of month, start of quarter, end of quarter. And like this, you have many, many different computations that have been created. To modify this, you can see that it has been commented as well. So this is where we are putting the reference as the current day, but if you want to change it to a different day, you can do that. The first year can be decided here, and then the year will be picked up from the reference that you have given in line number 8. And then, of course, there are other things you can change. For example, I can choose the first day of the week. For example, if I want to use Monday as a first day of the week, then I want to use 1 as the code here. And like this, there are different levers that you can change. And it has been commented really well. So if you spend a little bit of time, you will understand what you have to do. For most users, you don't really have to change much other than change the reference and then change the first year. Everything else will work properly. Let us close this and let me quickly show you how to create a date table in Power Query as well. Even though this might not be really important because most of our date tables are created in DAX, if you ever require to create one, I want to show you how to do it. So I'll go to transform data. And here we select new source and then blank query. And in this blank query, we will go to advanced editor and delete whatever you see here. And then on GitHub, I have given you the code, which is the M code for Power Query. Simply copy that, come back and paste it here. There are about 64 lines. And as you can see, the only thing we are changing here is the start year, the end year, and the start of the fiscal year. So which month the fiscal year starts. And that's it. I click on done. And as you can see, we get like this, a date table. So it really depends up to you whether this is important for you when you're working on Power Query. But typically for DAX expressions, we would create a date table using DAX. That makes more sense. If you Google a little more, you will find a lot of different examples around date tables. And I'm sure you will all agree that time intelligence calculations are a complex topic, but this is a good start. And my suggestion would be to go through the code very deeply and try to understand what all things have been done there, because that will help you build your own formulas in the future.